We got the Need for Speed Unbound Before You Buy, brought to us by Gameranx, man. Look, this is late. I think Need for Speed came out like the second, if not the first one of those days, man. But I haven't gotten to check this out yet until today. So I'm already checked out from buying this game. Like, I'm not buying it unless they convince me otherwise. But I'm like 90% not gonna buy it already. So there's nothing they can really say that's gonna convince me otherwise. But I do want to know what they say about the game, like what's wrong with it, what's right with it. Like I was really hyped about the game at first, but now, like I said, I'm probably not gonna get it. But let's see what they're talking about.
Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games. Hi, folks, it's Falcon, and today we're going to take a look at Need for Speed Unbound. So this new Need for Speed, with a new art style and an updated handling model,
I like the art style. I really like the art style, though. Yeah,
feels like it came out of nowhere, but it's a welcome surprise in a lot of ways. Criterion, the sort of fan favorite developers who came up with the Burnout series, they're behind some of the best Need for Speed games, period. They developed this one and, for whatever reason, decided that the hyper-realistic style that we usually get for racing games wasn't what they wanted to go with and went for Into the Spider-Verse. Now, this is a style that really pops on next-generation hardware. Like, we've obviously seen games try to do this many times, and this looks great. It also feels like a noticeable improvement on the open-world driving formula, but does this game actually revolutionize the NFS formula, or is it kind of another paint-by-numbers sequel with some fancy new effects? This is probably the question a lot of people have, especially given the kind of short notice that we were given on this game. It doesn't feel like we had a lot of run-up to it. So let's dig into it. The style is refreshing, if nothing else. When you're boosting or getting big air, you get these graffiti-style wings on the side of your vehicle. Peeling out causes this thick, stylized smoke to billow out. Really satisfying, might I add. And these little doodle...
Why am I looking at this? Like, what the hell? Like, what, bro? Like, bro, I'm like, bro, come on. Like, what are you doing to me right now? Why am I looking like I'm a caveman looking at a TV? Dog, this is not... Why are they trying to play me right now? Like, bro, honestly, I want to go over to my router and punch the shit out of it just for like making me look like I'm broke, dog. Like, yeah, I have internet, bro. I can afford to look at 1080p, bro.
Appear periodically in cutscenes and certain gameplay parts. It all looks absolutely great. It gives this game an identity that is unique, and the series just needed that. Like, there's not really anything that you can look at and know for sure that isn't a mechanical thing or just knowing, like, environments or maps that makes Need for Speed stand out stylistically. And, well, if this is what they stick with, we know what a Need for Speed game looks like now. That said, even at the end of the day, I'm not sure they pushed this style quite as far as they could have. Maybe that's something for the next one. But here, during cutscenes and in certain moments of any given race, you'll get bombarded with all these crazy effects, but moment-to-moment gameplay, it kind of looks pretty standard in terms of Need for Speed. That's not necessarily bad. Again, this is a game that always looks really good, if not a little bit like every other racing game, so having these effects seep in might be nice. That being said, the open world setting of Lakeshore really looks fantastic. It's rock solid, 60 FPS on PS5, but there's just nothing here you wouldn't normally see in any other open world racer. The cars, very realistic, rendered very well,
clean.
And weirdly enough, the contrast between the cartoony characters and the realistic everything else works pretty well. I mean, we've kind of seen that in a lot of games recently, and it blends pretty good. I think developers have more or less gotten what to do there. Now, that said, could they heighten the style of the world a little bit more? Yes. I would be okay with that too. I think it might be something to pursue. But enough about the visuals. I mean, it's really obvious what you're getting with the visuals from moment one. But the story, this time isn't quite as much of an afterthought as the story usually is in a Need for Speed game. You actually create a character this time.
Oh, shit.
Pretty robust set of creation options. The actual events of the plot are maybe as standard as you get. Friend goes bad, race against friend in tournament. Nothing special, but the cutscenes and presentation are a big step up. The story segments don't pop up super often, but when they do, it looks great. The dialogue, it can be a little grating, but that's also kind of expected with Need for Speed. I might just be used to it because I didn't find anything
that bitch just get
particularly
robbed.
embarrassing, but there is for sure embarrassing stuff. That said, there's also a funny line here and there, like for real. Once you get past the prologue, which is surprisingly long, like a few hours, genuinely, main meat of the game is gonna be a couple hours in, and that's when it becomes clear what you're actually doing. It's a 4-week tournament. Each week is split up, so you got 6 days to prepare for a qualifier on Saturday. You earn money, you upgrade your vehicle, you make it so you meet the tournament requirements, which is a certain vehicle rank and a bunch of money for the buy-in. Need for Speed Heat had a similar day and night setup. The biggest change here is how the police response works. Every day is split up into 2 parts, day and night. Day events usually earn less money and are easier overall, while night events, bigger entry fees, but you can earn way more. Every day starts with you having 0 heat with the police, but as you participate in race events, the heat starts to build up. Police start looking for you, yada yada. This carries over into night, resets the next day, so you gotta be careful how much heat you build up. Police response in this game is a lot better this time around. They're pretty tenacious at higher levels, but at lower ranks, they're relatively
God
easy to
damn,
escape from.
move.
At first, you'll have to deal with patrol cars that can barely keep up with you. Eventually, you'll start dealing with interceptors, helicopters, barricades, heavy rams. When I say heavy rams, I mean like they will smash the hell out of your car. So it's important to keep an eye on your heat level and make sure it doesn't get too high, because if you get caught, you lose all the cash you got on you and time advances. So that actually establishes some pretty high stakes.
Yo, this dude said the developers of Burnout worked on this, bro. These crashes, you can tell these are burnout ass. If you've ever played Burnout, you know like 70% of the fun of that game was crashing and seeing your shit just get destroyed.
In terms of police stuff in this game, because again, you need to collect that stuff over the course of the week. It's cool because it adds this risk and reward system to everything, because you can't just continually bank your cash after every single mission. Returning to a safe house advances the day, and if you only do one race event every day and every night, you're not going to get the money that you need to get into the qualifier at the end of the week. It's actually just a really cool way of sort of making you strategize as to what you're doing and adding to the challenge. You can only restart an event 4 times per day, so there's no rewind or anything like that. If you screw up, your only option is to restart, and if you run out, you're going to have to accept whatever position you end in.
Damn.
And that may end up having you lose money. All of this combined together makes the opening hours of Unbound surprisingly difficult. The AI racers are not forgiving. These guys will get way ahead of you, and it's unlikely you're going to be able to catch up. They don't rubber band like we've complained about in videos before, and that's actually both cool and I like it, but it does increase the difficulty, of course. There's also a betting mechanic, and it's pretty essential when you're just starting out, because it gives you a more credible goal to reach for when you really have no hope of getting first place. Instead of trying to beat the number 1 racer, who you're not going to, you can focus on beating one other racer, and if you pull it off, you get a nice cash bonus because you bet, which is cool. Again, it adds another layer of strategy to things, and I like that. But speaking of money, it doesn't come easy in this game. You're not going to be buying cars left and right, at least not at first, because most of your energy should be spent upgrading that vehicle you've got rather than trying to buy a car, because they're really expensive and you're not going to get a lot of money for quite a while. It's another way this game is actually challenging at first, and I really actually like this. Once you start upgrading your vehicle, things do get easier though. Your vehicle rating is essential. It's not like a lot of other racing games where a lower rated car doesn't really make a lot of difference as long as it's in the same class. In this game, if your car is rated higher than other cars in your class, as long as you don't screw up in a race, you're probably going to win it. Once I realized that, I was winning races left and right with no problem. I'm not supposed to race away, and it will exploit big mistakes you make, but for the most part, the experience gets much smoother as you invest money in upgrades, and that makes it so you can keep at least one car at the top of every class. I really liked the overall game structure, but it does start to get a little repetitive after a while. Some more varied events would have probably gone a long way into making things a little more exciting, because for the most part, you're just doing a lot of racing. And I don't hate that or anything, but again, it does get repetitive. There are a few other things to mix things up, like drift challenges, some time trials, escape from police missions, stuff like that. But
yo, bro, like, do people actually do the drift challenges and the time trials, dog? Like, I just thought they put that shit in there for fun, man. Like, y'all really do that?
I've seen this all in previous Need for Speed games. It feels a little boilerplate, and it all does kind of blend together a little bit just because nothing's really particularly new. There is one new event here called a takeover, where you race through a track running over as many objects as you can to build up a high score, and they're fun. I like them a lot, but it's also really kind of the only real mission like this, and I would have liked to see some more off the wall ideas for missions, because again, like, we're talking about a visual style that emphasizes a little bit more heightened feel, so we could have had some more heightened missions. The open world stuff isn't like spectacular either. There's stuff to run over, graffiti to collect, speed traps to drive through, and that's kind of it. It doesn't get in the way, but this stuff doesn't really add to the experience. So the gameplay loop boils down to this: start at a safe house, drive to an event, escape the cops, then do Metal Gear Solid Automotive Edition for a while as heat builds up, then drive back to base, bank your cash. You can't instantly start events, and it takes a while to get access to a lot of the safe houses, so you'll be spending a big chunk of the game driving to and from events. Avoiding cops, a lot of fun at first, but it eventually gets aggravating because you don't really get a lot of money from escaping them, and they start to feel like an interruption to what you want to be doing, you know? At least once you get a fast enough car, they're not too hard to avoid, but in some instances, police chases can just be a drag. So we've covered a lot of stuff, but I really haven't talked about the cars, and I mean, it's Need for Speed, so it's something we got to talk about. The cars are good, and there are a lot of them. You probably not see a whole lot of them in regular story mode, because the only cars you're probably unlocking are the free ones you get for competing in race events. They're otherwise prohibitively expensive, but everything that is in the game is well rendered. There's a ton of
This man saying you're broke in the game almost 80% of the time, dog. So don't get, hey, you see all these nice cars? Yeah, it's nice to look at, but you are not buying, you are not purchasing any of these, bro. But you can look, you can window shop.
Customization options. The creation suite in the game is fantastic, and players are already making a lot of really fantastic stuff that you can easily add to your own vehicle. The new handling options work really well too. Like, turning can be pretty heavy in this game, and it's definitely not burnout. Like, you're going to be using a lot of speed when drifting in pretty much every situation, and overall, I gotta say I like it despite some things. It took a little bit for me to get used to it, but I will say I think there's going to be some driving game enthusiasts that do not like the tap the brake style drifting this game has by default, but you can change it in the options style. Like a lot of these games, the cars start off kind of slow. In this case, very slow, and can even be a little hard to control too. It's another reason why the first few hours of the game are a lot more difficult, and it's also why investing in upgrades makes a huge difference in both performance and handling. It's something you have to do. Once you start getting A+, and S rank vehicles, things speed up a lot, and that's where you really get the intense sense of speed in this game. The vehicles are tough too. There's gas stations dotted around the map that you can repair your car at, but these things can take quite a beating. You can survive several head-on collisions without needing repairs, and that's fine by me. Is it realistic? Not necessarily, but in terms of the gameplay loop, it definitely works. I primarily played it on the PS5, but I also gave the PC version a spin on EA Play to see how it worked. Immediately ran into a problem with the game not recognizing my controller, which is kind of a serious issue for a racing game to have. The PS5 version hasn't given any problems other than some minor graphical glitches, and it runs at a pretty rock-solid frame rate. Compared to something like Forza Horizon 5, it's not going to wow anybody with its cutting-edge graphics, but
that man taking voice to Applebee's
really well and keeps a solid 60 FPS, even at 4K. Overall, it's a good game. I really like what they've done with the visuals. The new car handling is good. Campaign starts off solidly challenging. Problem is, after a while, it just starts to feel a little thin. The lack of variety in events and kind of repetitive structure kind of bogs the campaign down, but the racing itself really solid. If you're looking for an old school racing experience that doesn't shower you with rewards at every step and actually tries to challenge you, then at least at first, Need for Speed Unbound is a pretty solid entry in the franchise, with a steep price tag. $69.99, kind of a lot, but you can try the game out for 10 hours on EA Play if you want to get a feel for it. Now, this is not reinventing the wheel, so to speak. The visuals suggest a much bigger departure from the Need for Speed we know, but it's not that. It just is a version of Need for Speed with a lot of positive improvements. It's not all great. The open world isn't the most interesting, and the police chases, while fun at first, get old after a while. That said, overall, I really enjoyed my time with Unbound. One last thing, no cash shop. Everything we bought with regular in-game cash I think Heat was the same way, but I'm really glad that EA didn't start falling back in old habits that
that's
we all
so
loathe.
stupid.
That's good. So, like,
So
not a
stupid.
revolution, but an improvement. If that's what you're okay with spending $70 on, this is worth it. If not, maybe wait till it's cheaper. But what do you think? Leave us a comment.
Look, like I said at the beginning of the video, they really couldn't say anything that would have changed my mind about not buying the game. It's good to know that the game, at least at first, for like, let's say the first 10, 12 hours, is challenging. You know, I don't like when you're getting a lot of money in Need for Speed games so you can just upgrade your car to the max or buy the next fastest car easily, bro. My man literally said you're gonna be broke most of the time. Like, yeah, them cars are nice to look at, but you're probably not gonna buy them. You should probably upgrade your rice burner that you're rolling with right now. That's like what I want a Need for Speed game to be, bro. Like, but yeah, I mean, like a lot of the stuff he was saying, I kind of figured already from watching a few other things about the game, and I was that's why I was like, man, I guess I'll skip out on another Need for Speed. Like, I have not bought a Need for Speed game since like Hot Pursuit, and I didn't even want to buy that game. My boy just like, bro, please get it so we can play together. Now I was like, all right, bro. That was like what, 2014, 2013, 2012, 2011, one of those years, man. I didn't even want to buy that bitch either. Yeah, so I mean, once again, like I already knew what time it was with Unbound. Unfortunate again, I do like the art style. I actually love the art style. I love the cars. Obviously, like he was saying, Need for Speed graphics are always gonna be good. The game's always gonna look good. But how's it gonna play? How's the story gonna be? One of these days they'll get the game right, and I'll just be like, God, I gotta cop, bro. I gotta cop. But another year, hey, and then. Bro, this $70, bro, like, bro, it's getting tougher and tougher to purchase a game with it, bro. Like, I'm not trying to drop 70. It's crazy because it's just $10, but it's like, bro, that $10 is like life or death, bro. I might not eat that week spending that $70, man.
Gotta catch a vibe, yeah, I had to put her on. Bought a two-seater, yeah, we heading for the sun. Shawty got my high, I ain't tripping for the funds. Yeah, I won't start, I ain't tripping, I'm a stunt.